And good evening. Welcome to another episode of Mauck Talk. The great debate will continue tonight. I know we had a lot of interest in last week's show, so we've decided to do the same format again with some questions, and the three of us give our answers. I'm Eric Mauck, and tonight I will represent who I am, which is probably the most moderate of the panel, middle of the road. Travis.
I'm Travis. I am not the most moderate on the panel. It's good to be here. It's good to see everybody.
Rob Weaver here. I'm the most sensible of the panel. No, I'm on one of the other ends of the spectrum for some things.
You know, it's funny. You have three of us in here, and you've got, middle of the road, leans certain ways, right, left, but you get us talking, and it's a lot of issues. And I think this is how a lot of America is. A lot of issues we agree on, or we're just right there. Yeah. We're not, if I'm watching the Fox or MSNBC or CNN, you think it's a great divide. It's really not. We agree on a lot of stuff. But tonight, we're going to kind of debate the issues. We'll have about a minute and a half to answer the questions. Then we might do some back and forth. Last week, we didn't get through even half of the agenda, so we're going to try to stay on point. So my wife, Dawn Mauck, the beautiful Dawn Mauck, she's off camera, but she is going to ask the questions. And so we may all run for something someday. I've actually run for Congress before.
Dog catcher.
And so dog catcher, you never know. So this may be good prep work. All right. What's our first question tonight for the great panel here?
What do you think of Elon Musk being part of the government and the cuts he is making?
All right, well, we'll kick it with Rob this week to lead us off.
Oh, he doesn't look like he's ready.
Yeah, I'm not a fan of Teslas right now. I understand the premise of it, and the way that they're marketing it is pretty good, right? All we're doing is looking for efficiency, right? Efficiency, which sounds good, right? I think what we're seeing, though, is one of the things I think the divide between rich and poor shows us a lot is that we have no kind of empathy in terms of how it's being played out. Like, it's just stop. And all of the people who were hurt as a result of that, those decisions to just stop things instead of going about it in a way that's less impactful to the daily lives of those people. So I get the premise of efficiency. I think you're starting with all of the wrong things in terms of budget. There's a whole lot more you can do with the other 60% of budget that we spend on like defense or whatever it may be. But I'm not opposed to the idea. I'm opposed to the execution of it.
All right, Travis.
I think it's great. I think I don't think it's gone nearly far enough. I think that it's been a wild week in the news, man. But I had no blinders on about the inefficiency of our government and the wasteful spending. But some of the things that they've uncovered are, frankly, they're unbelievable. I mean, I believe that they've been spending that money. I just have a hard time believing it was ever allowed to happen. And I think I kind of see Rob's point. What I think the problem is, because I do think that there are some, I'm just going to say I'll use the USAID example. I think that there are probably some portions of that where some people are being what I would call collateral damage, like they're negatively impacted. But what's unfortunate about that is that you've got a poisoned well. I mean, you've got an entire organization that's completely poisoned. And I don't care if it ends up being just 10 or 12 things where the spending's out of control and they're spending things on 300 or 400 things as a group. You have to pause it until this can be rectified. This is billions and billions and billions. When I watched Chris Coons from Delaware get up on national news this week and defend $20 million in Iraq for Sesame Street, I thought I was watching a parody. I'll leave it at that.
It's some of the stuff that's coming out is absolutely mind-boggling, and I hear the people on the left saying, "Hey, this only represents 0.1% of the budget," but then some of the stuff that I'm hearing that we may cut, it's life-saving. It's things that we're sending to other countries to do preventions like AIDS prevention or vaccines that we're sending to other countries. And so, that old saying that my grandmother used to say, which sounds terrible, but don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, old saying. And I hope we don't do that. But some of the things we're cutting, absolutely, it's nonsense. But again, we're really, instead of taking a scalpel, if you will, to do surgery, we've brought in a chainsaw, and maybe that's necessary. I will say, and as someone that is not a Trump supporter and did not vote for Trump, gentlemen, there is one thing that scares me about this whole thing, is that if Trump is right and they get this stuff under control, we'll talk about this later, but this is the kind of thing that could wipe the Democratic Party out. If it truly is successful and we're still able to send proper aid to other countries that need it and keep disease, and I say it, I'm laughing, obviously. That's what I would like to see happen. But just the way they're going about it, like Rob said, it's a little scary to me, but we'll see. I think Elon Musk, not somebody I would put in charge of that particular program, but I'm not president, and no one voted for me for president, so we'll see.
I mean, that is a really good point. Before you move on, real quick, is that this was made very clear in the, for those who voted for Trump, this was made very clear in the campaign that it was, Doge and Elon Musk, and I mean, this was a cornerstone of his campaign, was that he was going to unleash Elon Musk, so to speak, to go into some of these agencies. And, I pulled up a few videos this week of some Democrats from 10 and 15 years ago demanding that we do this, demanding that we audit every department. And now they seem to be the loudest.
Well, I would like to say this, for someone that voted for Vice President Harris, the Democrats the last couple of weeks have really looked like clowns. And I'm very, very holding these press conferences and saying these things. Let's let it work. You're not going to stop it. And let's put some, Chris Coons is defending Sesame Street. Like, who cares? Like, let's make sure the real issue is the real issue.
Right.
And, I don't want to overreact to all this stuff, but what's the next question we got?
Hold on, before you jump.
Oh, good.
One of the things I'm hearing about, let me address the Democrats have been, right? We have always been, like, the left has always been the party of fiscal responsibility. Like, you can try to assert something different, but it's hard to talk to a guy who's adding so much to the national debt in his short 4 years about fiscal responsibility. You can't, it's a number. So if that number goes from 10 to 18 over the course of your 4 years, you got to take some kind of accountability in that. And what we're now saying is the guy who did those kind of behaviors and activity is also going to be put in charge of reducing the budget. It's literally like, no, the guy who just robbed your house, you're going to put him in charge of security.
I don't think
that is a wild.
I don't think either party. is fiscally responsible. I think I don't think there's anybody left in our government that really
But look at it from the
cares.
numbers though. Like what
Well,
we
you
can
had-
always
you had
talk about thinking
pandemic.
opinions and all that stuff, but what does it say? Like if we on day one of an administration, we had $10 in 10 trillion in debt, and on the last day they had 20. Do those numbers not matter?
Yeah, they matter. But who's the last president that balanced the budget?
Jimmy Carter.
Jimmy Carter.
Well, it was
No,
actually
no.
It
was
was Bill
actually Bill
Clinton,
Clinton.
actually.
Clinton.
But you know why I said Carter?
Both what? Both for what?
Democrats.
But you know why I said Jimmy Carter? The national debt, and I believe, somebody can send me a message, tell me how wrong I am, but I'm in the ballpark. The national debt from George Washington, you've all heard of him,
Mhm.
to Jimmy Carter, heard of him,
Mhm.
was less than $1 trillion.
Right.
And that was 30,
Yeah, I've-
39 presidencies,
Mhm.
38 different people, because Grover Cleveland did what Trump just did. So 38 different men. From Ronald Reagan to Ronald Reagan, those 8 years, we went to 4 trillion. We went from less than $1 trillion in the whole history of the country to 4 times. So I'm going to tell both of you, since Ronald Reagan, nobody cares because no one's been responsible.
But that's a very broad and very
The numbers don't lie, my friend.
yeah. But for most of those presidencies that you're talking about, there was a lot of unpaid labor. So you don't know what our debt was in that time because you were getting labor for free.
And that is true, and that's a much deeper conversation. but Robert, and I'm not downplaying that, and you're definitely right. But to go from less than $1 trillion under 39, even if the numbers are skewed, Ronald Reagan blew a hole in the deficit. We can all agree on that.
Mhm.
He added over 3 trillion when there was less than $1 trillion.
Right.
But since then, every president does this. It's like Reagan opened the floodgates to, hey, it doesn't matter anymore.
It's literally not every president. You just called out one who
Bill
balanced
Clinton
the
balanced the
budget.
budget, I believe, 2 of the 8 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
I mean, and Bill Clinton was a good president. Bill Clinton is a scummy, dirtbag, garbage human being, but
And
he was
Trump's
a
not?
great
Ah,
president.
Traps.
and Trump's not.
He may be. I just said Bill Clinton was a great
No.
president.
Use the same criteria that you use to establish that about Bill.
I just said that.
I know, but how did
Trump
you
may be a
establish that
scummy-
Bill was that kind of person?
Well,
From
I don't know if
the
I
news
should
articles?
say it on the
You haven't had
show.
a one-on-one conversation with the man. You haven't been able to evaluate
Oh,
evaluate
my
his
God.
attractiveness.
This guy has settled
Travis.
more sexual.
Travis, I love you, man. You're great.
He's settled more inappropriate sexual conduct lawsuits than any president in history.
One, that's a very short, very small sample set. It's only 47 people, and I almost think the 47 might have.
It's only
There
47,
might
yeah.
be tied. There might be a tie between Bill and Trump.
Do you know what?
No, it's
Do you
not
know what
even
Michael
close.
Moore called Bill Clinton? The greatest Republican ever to be president.
I agree with that too.
The point I
He's
was
very
trying
much
to make was
conservative.
that if you can separate the politician from the person, and I think that's not to take a jab at anybody or anything, but I think that's a very defining. That's a big difference to me between conservatives and some Democrats. Is I voted. No, I didn't. I would have voted for Bill Clinton his second term. I didn't vote at all, but I would have voted for Bill Clinton. I'll vote for a Democrat who can do the job. A Democrat will never vote for a Republican because there's an R next to their name. So I don't care so much.
They actually voted straight Republican.
Yeah, that may have been that was
In
for
California.
Most
Yeah, in
most
California.
I voted
Democrats will.
in
That was a
California
little bit
because it
overgeneralization.
was extreme.
But I thought Bill Clinton was an effective president. I thought the country was in really good shape. I thought he left it in good shape. There are some things I said about Bush that I wish I could go back and erase from having ever said them, because at that time I was so young in my political career that I myself was a Republican. So if Bush did it, I felt like I had to justify it.
Yeah.
And I look back on it now, and I'm kind of ashamed of the things that I remember specifically you asked me one on the last show about the war in Iraq, and I was like, well, you had to go in there. There were weapons of mass destruction. I remember saying that, and only with wisdom do you go, oh man, what were we ever doing? What were we?
And full disclosure, I usually vote for, in an election. And when she said I voted straight Republican, I did in a midterm election in California. And I'll be honest, the Republican Party there, most of them would be considered left wing here. Out in California, we really didn't have any true Republicans. But and I think I don't like the extremes on either side. But again, everybody's got their personal preference, and there's no voting that's wrong. But I think that I would definitely go back to 8 years of Bill Clinton over some of the nonsense we've had the last few. But anyway, what's the next question?
Next question is 53% of Americans approve of Trump so far, according to a newly released CBS News /YouGov poll. Also, 1 in 5 Democrats. Are you surprised?
Well, I can start with this.
We recently heard this.
Yeah, I'm surprised that the approval rating's above 50. And I could try to explain it away and go, well, every new president has a good approval rating when they first start and blah, blah, blah. I think that so far, what Trump is doing is resonating with the American people. That's why he was elected. We haven't seen, look, the proof's in the pudding here. And we haven't seen what happens yet. We're not even, what are we, a month in? Not even a month.
How many people voted? What percentage of the people voted for him?
He still is the first Republican since 2004 to get the majority of the vote. He did get the majority, which Republicans we thought would never happen.
He's in alignment with what the country.
He didn't get 53% of the vote.
What he got? 51?
49.
49.
And then
49.8.
His approval rating is higher than it was.
That's right.
Ever was.
And I'll clean this up and then I'll kick it to you guys. It's the highest it's ever been. I'm not going to explain it away. I think these things he's doing are resonating and they're popular so far. Let's see. Now, what actually surprised me more about that poll is 1 in 5 registered Democrats, 20% of Democrats that voted against him actually have approved. So that means he's brought 1 in 5 Democrats over to say, hey, he's doing a good job. But again, let's see what happens. But I know for me, I'm not really surprised. If it was 70%, I'd be like, wow. Yeah. But it's not, because he's not a unifier, so he's never going to do that. I'll kick it to you, Travis.
I don't know if I can say it much better than you do. I think he's doing, like you said, it's the proof is in the numbers. Also, I think he's calmed down a lot in his messaging. And I think that people are a little quicker to hear him out and what he has to say. I'm not saying he's perfect, but I'm saying that this Donald Trump 2.0 compared to Donald Trump 2016, if you compare their rhetoric and their demeanor and even their tone, to me, it's a lot different. I think that some people around him have said, hey man, you've got to stop speaking to people the way you do, or about people the way you do in some instances. If you really want to get your agenda pushed through. I've even noticed the way he talks to reporters is it's a lot more docile than the Trump from 2016. So, I think what we're seeing right now is pretty amazing. It's long overdue.
Let's kick it to Rob.
What parts are you guys okay with? Like, tell me, this is what I think about that poll. I think those polls don't get a grasp of anything real anymore because of the way we consume information. I think if you're trying to call somebody on a landline phone to get those things, you're getting the sample set that you want.
Second, CNN did the poll.
So
Rob, if he got 49%, you don't think he's picked up 4%?
I don't I don't really care about it. I don't think it's a demonstration of his policies in any way. That's why I'm asking the question of which specific policy is he enacting specifically that you're okay with? What is it? Or he's even suggesting, is it the we take over Greenland policy? Is it the we go make Gaza a beachfront property? Like, which policy are you guys okay with? Or are you fans of?
I never, for the record, I just said I'm not surprised at the poll. I never said I'm okay. I think he's resonating. I do think the government spending, the government taking the hacksaw to the government spending is resonating with people. 1 in 5 Democrats are saying. But again, I go back. The proof's in the pudding. It's 3 weeks in. We haven't seen the blowback, if you will, from some of this stuff.
We have, though. We've seen it. We saw the tariff blowback and what it did.
It lasted 1 day.
Exactly.
One day.
He took it off that
And then he got exactly what he wanted.
Had that, if it was still going today and prices had raised,
Yeah.
here's where it's going to get bad for Trump. If the prices don't start coming down, or if they actually increase, if gas doesn't come down, because it's beautiful, it's the most beautiful.
But it won't get bad for him. He's going to feed some line of bullshit.
You don't
People are
think
going to
53. You don't.
I absolutely believe this country who support that man has all intent of supporting him to the nth degree. They do not care what he's doing.
He lost re-election in 2020.
That's such a wild thing to say.
Like, they just don't.
Say let's just say it was 50% of Americans that put Trump in office are just dumb followers. But the other 50% that you're on the side of are smart, intelligent.
No. I'm saying those people are dumb too.
Message that's killing the Democrats.
I am not
Now,
suggesting them.
come over to my side.
Right. I'm not suggesting
The
that
other
those
day,
people
Rob texted me about
saying-
something, and I told him, I said, I hate all of politics.
Yes.
I'll be furious if Trump does. I mean, to answer your initial
But you
question,
guys still haven't told me the
the
policies you're okay with.
deportations. That's one of the main.
Why are you lumping me in with you guys?
The deportations. He said he was going to do it. He said he wasn't going to play any games. He said it was going to start from day one, and it did, and it is, and it continues to happen. These people have to go back to their countries, and he's making that happen. And I can generalize for just a second, but he's putting an end to these foreign wars. He's cleaning up the United States government and their money that they're spending.
Which war has he put it? Like, the deportations have cost
He's going
us.
to put an end. He's going to put an end to the Israel-Palestine conflict. He's going to put an end to it. And my prediction is that within the next 6 months, he'll force Ukraine and Russia to the.
So he's understanding that these are not even assessments of what he's doing. It's assessments of what we think
That's
he will be
that's
doing.
one. That's the only one I said. This is what I think that he's going to do on Russia and Ukraine. The deportations are happening. He's cleaning up the
He's
spending
even blundering
right now.
that. He's deporting
What
them at
are
a
you-
more expensive rate than we would if we put them on a damn Spirit Airlines back to their country. Like, even because the goal is pain. The goal is to inflict pain.
How do you know that? How do you know that his goal is to cause pain to an individual?
Let's say
I-
it costs
you can't possibly
$1,000 to get a guy to Colombia right now.
Okay,
Would it ever be sensible to do it at a cost of $8,000?
$600 to $8,000.
No,
That's nowhere close to what it's costing to deport these people.
Can I ask both of you something?
it literally is
You're
though.
living in.
It's 8,000 a head.
Okay,
4,000 to 8,000 a head.
time out. The three of us we're very in tune with politics.
Yes.
And I think what you're seeing, right, Rob, what you're saying, that's in the weeds. We're in the weeds right now. And I think people watching, they're not in the weeds. And I'm saying you both are bringing up good points, but I don't want to lose the audience here. I think, Travis, this is what I'll say. If what he was doing was just popular with everyone, the approval would be higher than 53%. And I think if more
Who made the claim it was popular with everyone?
No, if it was more popular. And I think the fact that if he got 49% of the vote and he's at 53% now, that he's moved a little bit. But I think the point of the question, are you surprised he's at 53%?
No.
No, I'm not surprised. Robert, are you surprised he's at 53%?
No. Nothing surprised me about
Okay.
this populace at all.
Now, 6 months from now, if he's at 60, I'm going to be surprised. I'll say it right now. To me,
Eggs are going to be
53,
18 a dozen, and gas will be 9 a gallon.
to me, 53 might be near his ceiling because it's hard
I think
to
he
get
said his
above
ceiling.
53. What's the next question?
Hold on. What are your thoughts about the school choice vouchers in Texas? That's a great question.
All right, I will go last because I don't have kids in school. You both do. So
I like this.
You want to take this one, or are you got a strong opinion
Yeah,
about this?
I'm for school choice. I'm for vouchers. I don't know if I've ever really had anybody explain to me why it's such a negative thing, other than you're going to take money away from public schools. To which my answer is, go look at the report card we just got and tell me why we spend more per pupil per student than any country in the world, and we're dead last. Department of Education should be absolutely obliterated. It should go back to the states where it belongs. Everything belongs with the states. We should have a small, streamlined federal government. They cannot do this. I don't know the first year of the Department of Education. It was it
it's
7?
under the Carter administration.
Okay. It's been an absolute failure. It's why we wouldn't give parents who want to send their children to a different school a voucher is beyond anything I can comprehend. If the only reason is that we say it's going to take money from public schools.
1980.
1980. So it's into the Carter administration. Rob, your thoughts?
It's a horrible idea. It's absolutely going to do that. All it's going to do is allow for people who can afford higher levels of education to have a cheaper cost. The reality is our education system being funded the way that it is off of property taxation makes no sense at all, and inherently builds a deficit into the system. So part of the reason that we have low turnout or low results is because of resources for each student. These students are born into this world, and it's literally a lottery. If they end up in Highland Park, they're going to be fine. If they ended up in Red Oak or South Dallas, because of how we fund schools, there's going to be some deficits in their education. That's just the reality of it. I was a DSEG kid when I was a young toddler, Tad, what do you call him? Young Todd.
Young lad.
I had to get on the bus 45, 50 minutes every day to go to school in the county is what they call it, right? In St. Louis. And that was a program because the schools in the inner city were so underfunded, so mismanaged because of the resources and availability that they gave us an opportunity to go out to these schools, and it paid off for me. But what I also learned is there's nothing different about the students in that school. It's simply a matter of resources funding that school. It's simply a matter of the lifestyles that are necessary for those people in those communities to live, which are very much different when you have to get up at 6 a.m. to go to a job that might last 8 p.m. versus being a Highland Park mom who may get up at 5 or may not be able to have to go to work at all. So that's the education system is not reflective of a fair and equal based system at all. Like just from the get-go, why are we funding schools based on property taxation? Aren't we inherently saying you live in a poor community and you should have a lesser education as a result?
So just to clarify, if you're a family that lives in one of these impoverished communities, if someone could give you a voucher to send to a charter school that has, let's say, higher test turnouts, you're saying that's a bad thing.
I'm saying execution is much more important than the premise of a thing. So what I know to be true is
you didn't say anything.
I'm gonna tell you what I just said. The execution of the thing is the same as saying let's go slash the budget, right? how you do it, the execution of it, is much more important.
But you're not saying anything. You're just saying the execution
Yeah,
of this.
you keep interrupting me in the middle of the
Sorry,
sentence.
you're right. I'm sorry. That was true.
So if that person has a choice to go take their kid to another school, a private school or a charter school, isn't that subject to how many people can get into that school?
Yes.
Like, isn't it going to be a limit?
Yes,
Well,
absolutely.
sure, but
Yeah. So let's
is
say
the proposition not to keep opening these charter schools.
no, that's not part of the plan. But the
It
part
is part.
well, so we just keep charter schools are unregulated. They don't have the same rules,
Mhm.
right?
They're private.
No,
They're
Like
private.
charters are,
Charters are not private.
They're not.
They're private.
they're hard to get into.
They're
but
kind of
privately owned.
they're
parent
but
run.
they're and they're
They
selectively.
still have some
They
regulation.
still have some regulation, and mind you, the feds makes no rules for schools. Those are all state bounded rules. All they do is give kids money to the schools. Now there's some things you can't do, like discriminate as a result of to get that money, but they don't make a single rule for schools in the state of Texas. The federal feds do not. They just don't. It's just misinformation. People don't understand how those rules work.
Interesting debate by you two. You have kids, so I don't need to hear a third voice. I will say this. Travis and I grew up together, and when I say poor, we were poor. We weren't, if they had iPhones when we were growing up, we wouldn't have been the family that had the iPhones.
Yes.
We wouldn't have been the family that people say, how can they always be broke, but they have iPhones? We wouldn't have had iPhones.
Yes.
We didn't have car, okay, half the time. And I'm talking poor. And the schools we went to were poor. And Rob, I'm assuming same from you. I don't know how the three of us ever made it because the schools were terrible. And you know what's sad? If we go back, Travis, Rob, there's a lot of kids that went to school with us. They're in massive poverty today. The cycle just continued. And so whatever we can do to figure out how to break the cycle, and we'll move on to the next question. The only idea that I would have about this is all the money goes into one fund and is equally distributed to all the schools. So where it doesn't matter if you live in, I know it's never going to happen, but it doesn't matter if you live in Highland Park or you live in Denison, like
you get
Travis
funded
and
the
I grew up.
same. Yes,
You
that's
get
what should be
you get
determined.
funded the same. It'll never happen,
Mm-mm.
but to me, that makes it equal. And what I don't want to see is some system come in where we collapse the schools and they don't have money and we're shutting down and you're taking that 50-minute bus ride, because that's not good for
It's not good at all.
either of your kids. All right, what's the next question?
I was going to say too, another kind of downside about charters is that they typically don't provide any transportation to and from. So it's on the parents to,
Is that true?
Yes.
I mean,
It's
think
very
about the one
typically,
that I worked
it's a
at.
budget issue
But,
for them.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like when we lived in Arkansas, they had a magnet system. And so if your child was interested in like tech or STEM back then they could go to the magnet school, the public school that focused on that. And then if they were interested in music or art, they could go to the magnet school, the specific campus that focused on that. And they provided transportation. It was all a part of the Little Rock and North Pulaski County school system. At the time, I didn't think it was fair because we lived in a certain neighborhood. But looking back, and now that I've worked in education, like that was pretty brilliant because it took the kids' natural interest and just enhanced it and allowed them to get out of those certain neighborhoods and be able to do something with their passions.
Yeah, and before you get to the next question, I know Travis, I know Rob, you're passionate about your kids, and you both are going to make sure your kids get the best education that you can provide. And I'll say this about the way I grew up, that didn't matter. We were going to go to the free school. Didn't matter if the education was good. We were going to ride the bus. We were going to do that. And, your kids are lucky to have both of you as fathers. So next question.
How do we fix healthcare?
Oh, I'll start with that. Healthcare is my biggest passion.
We need more interesting things to follow.
Yeah. I'll just say this, and then we'll get another question in. I would like to see Medicare for all expanded and have a government-run system, because however you slice it, it's the only way it works. And are there problems with it? Absolutely. But what we cannot have is we cannot have a 40-year-old person that has no insurance and needs to go in for a physical that would catch cancer, or maybe colon cancer or lung cancer. But even if they could go for that exam, they can't afford, and it's a big mess, and that's how people die.
It's a public good.
I absolutely believe that life is the most sacred thing. And if life is the most sacred thing, we have to figure out how to get health care for everyone. So, and then we can move on to another topic that's better. Rob, I'll kick it over to you.
No, we're in alignment there. That's about the only
I
reasonable thing you said.
I don't.
Attack in the middle here.
I don't know how. I don't know the answer. I don't know the answer to this, because I had my own insurance hangups this week with a really good private plan that my wife has. However, no one's going to be able to explain to me how we're going to make. You're not going to get me to believe that the government's going to do that well. We look at the VA. It's a disaster. We have veterans waiting six months to get a doctor's appointment, and we're going to broaden that. We're going to make that bigger and expand that to more people, and we're going to do it well.
Yes.
It'll never happen. The government is not. I don't know how we can look at our government and say they could do anything efficient.
What do they do well?
Then maybe run it at the state level. I don't know.
Okay, that I could have a conversation.
But maybe every state has to. You know, when I lived in Massachusetts, we had Romney Care for our governor, Mitt Romney, and then he ran away from it when he ran for president.
Yep.
I voted for Mitt Romney, by the way. If you're watching tonight, Mitt, you can come on at any time. You could be my president anytime.
I did too.
So I thought he was a great moderate. We've had this debate, Rob. And I love the moderates, and none of them were left. But anyway, what's the next question?
Oh, I was just going to say, going back to Travis's point, like same thing with health, mental health care.
Mhm.
Passionate about it. We were recently talking about when you need mental health care, you still have to wait for, we went through this with someone recently, and they had to wait 3 months for a consultation. If you're in that negative space, you need to talk to somebody. You can't wait 3 months just to see if they can, if you have a personality, if you gel with them.
Right.
So I'm very passionate about that.
Well, you know what?
Healthcare.
That's not one of the questions I think that you have, I'm going to guess. But I want to say this. We grew up, the three of us are about the same age, and none of us years ago would talk about this, but we got to get the mental health care in this country right.
Man.
Because if we fixed if you could work on your mental health like you work on other health, we would be a much healthier nation and much happier. And there is an absolute, my wife is almost finished for her psychologist degree. And there is just such a need. And when you're in that bad space, and I struggle with other things. You can tell I struggle with eating, and I need to work out more in that. I haven't struggled so much with mental health care, but I've had days where I needed to talk to somebody. And I actually, when I ran the campaign, I'll tell it publicly, I was working full time, running a campaign for Congress. I had one campaign staff member because I didn't take one donation. I paid out of pocket. I did everything ground floor, and I was stressed to the T. And we had an EAP program at work, and I used the 2 free sessions. And I don't even remember the sessions. I just remember I was a lot better after the 2 sessions. And thank God I had them. Most people don't have that.
Yeah.
These
actually.
were 2 free sessions and they got me in pretty quick.
The good thing for Medicare for All is that it takes a profit motive out of the system, right? So, mental health care isn't included in your health insurance
Right.
Most of the time.
most of the time,
Yeah.
right? So there's a reason that they don't want to pay for that,
Yeah.
right? Dental insurance, which is just as much about your physical well-being and health, isn't a part of that. That's because the people who do the health doesn't want to take the margins on that. So
It's sad.
part of the reason that we have those things separated because we have middlemen in the middle who say, hey, this won't make me enough money to take care of your well-being. It won't make me enough money. But Medicare for All takes that out of the system and sees everybody being their most healthy selves as the public good, as a thing that we are okay with. It gives us higher GDP, less people who are sick. Less people who are sick means more productivity, etc. It's a long game. But there's no reason that you should be, why is my health a luck of the draw? Why is my health based on what family I was born into when I had no choice of what family I would be born into?
So what if you take out, I get what you're saying about removing the profit motive. I don't agree with it, but if you take it out, what in a Medicare for All system, what is the motivation for everyone to do a good job and take care of other people? Is it because they're all really good people and they all want to do their jobs and they all want to?
Well, they're going to make money in the Medicare for All system.
Yeah,
A physician is going to be paid for their talent.
he's still going to be paid for his talent.
They're already paid. We spend what, $1 trillion a year on uninsured people already, and then
It isn't like we're not paying for these people. We are,
if you
right?
you
They go to the ER for a physical instead. They go to the ER for a toothache. They go to the ER when they have a mental breakdown. So those are all built into the pay-for system that we have today. It just so happens that me and you have to bear that cost so we can maintain a profit motive. That's just how it works.
60 million people are using Medicare and Medicaid already. I mean, it's a 20%.
And it hasn't broke the population.
Travis, we'll move to the next episode. I want to. It's not me and Robert not ganging up on you on one thing. There is one thing about
We
Medicare.
absolutely are. We texted about it earlier.
Except Travis, there is one thing with Medicare for All that scares me. Anytime I go to the DMV, I'm like, dear Lord, help me, because it's disorganized, dysfunctional, and nobody gives a you know what at the DMV. And every time I'm there, which is rare, thank God, I'm like, we cannot have healthcare be like DMV. Anyway,
But why wouldn't it be?
Yeah.
It'll just be better because we want it to be better.
no, DMV, first off, DMV is a state program.
It's not a federal program.
And DMV is, I've lived in 10 states. 10 states. And do you know who out of the 10 states, you know who had the best DMV experience I've ever had? Who had it together? Arkansas. I don't know why. All right, next question.
No, they totally sent my stuff to Arizona.
My experience having 10 different driver's licenses was Arkansas had it the best.
What should the minimum wage be?
I'll
In
start this one.
Texas?
You're a business owner, Travis.
There
Kick it
should
off.
be no minimum wage, period.
Mm.
If the minimum wage were good for the economy, why don't we just make it $100 or $200 an hour? The minimum wage, all the minimum wage serves to do, all the minimum wage accomplishes is it hurts small business owners. It hurts small business owners. It hurts Main Street shops. That's all it does. And it does have a bottom line effect on larger companies too. But the entire idea of a minimum wage is one of the worst ideas we've ever had in this country.
All right, I'll go next. So here's the thing with the minimum wage. If the Democrats want to take back the country and they want to start winning, then Democrats, and I almost said we, but I did run as a Democrat. I probably lean more towards a Democrat. We as Democrats have to get back to issues. And one of the big issues besides healthcare for all is minimum wage. The average person in this country makes $66,000 a year is the average. That is about $32, $31 an hour. That's the average. That means half of the country working makes less than that. I don't know how anybody can live in any city of any size on less than that. The reason it is less than that is because certain employers in this country will pay. If the minimum wage was nothing, they would pay $1 an hour. And people will say, well, let the market decide. No, there's always going to be a group of people that will be taken advantage of because it's either low skills, fresh out of high school, fresh out of college. They need a job to support their family. They're in a high unemployment area. And if you're in a high unemployment area, Rob and Travis, and you have to feed your kid and somebody's offering you $3 an hour, it's better than nothing. We have to have the minimum wage in this country. When I ran for Congress, I said, let's make it increase $1 per hour every year, phase in $1 per hour every year until it reaches 15. If we had done that in 2016, we would be almost at 15 now. But the minimum wage in this country, and I'll kick it to Rob before Travis explodes, should be at least $20 or $25 an hour. It should be 40 to 50 grand.
Why not 60?
We can't collapse the economy.
Oh,
But there will come a day where it will be $60 an hour.
okay.
Way after we're gone.
Okay.
All right, Rob, my rant.
Yeah, I agree with the rant. I don't understand if we've had 40 years of productivity gains, why shouldn't the people share in those gains? Like, why should all of those gains go to the people at the top? It just doesn't make much sense to me. We know that it doesn't, you cannot afford a single one bed. Hell, you can't afford a studio in Dallas for $759. Like, you can't do it. So
I think it's $725 an hour, actually. Not to, that's how
yeah,
low
even
it
worse.
is.
Which is like what, 20 hours a week, a little bit about 15.5. 15.5 is what we're saying. Like, there's no rent in Dallas that you can do for 15.5. And I'm talking about in the most dilapidated kind of buildings that suck. Like, so I just don't understand why we believe that all of the productivity gains we've had as a result of public investment, as a result of the roads that we pave, all the taxation, the things that the ingress, egress that lets people get on, the companies get on and on off highways, we pay for that. And yet we're not supposed to share in any of the productivity as a result. That doesn't make any sense to me.
Who has less poverty? The state. What state has the highest minimum wage? It's probably Washington or California.
Yeah.
And is the poverty rate in Washington State or California more than Texas?
No, they send money
Mississippi,
to red states every year.
But I do want to say this, Travis. No one is saying as a small business owner that your minimum wage should go from $7.25 to $25 overnight. It would put you out of business.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I get it, because you're people that have worked hard, and I don't know your business, and this is an example, but it's people that have worked hard and they're making $25 an hour. If the minimum wage all of a sudden becomes 25, they're going to go to you and be like, dude, I'm going to go work
Right.
this job because I worked my way up and now I'm making what and so you would lose your good employees because you would have to pay them $50 an hour.
Yeah, but there's a part that you're, I mean, that was part of my point, but there's to me, a broader point that you're missing, which is that now, if my minimum wage is $25 an hour, because I can barely afford that, I've got to have the absolute top skilled person in that job. So now I can no longer go hire a kid that's 18 and maybe teach him what to do and grow him with my company. I've got to have right now the top person that I can put in that position because the government's telling me I have to pay a certain hourly rate. So now you've taken all these jobs away from the 18 to 23 bracket. You've just paced them out of a job because they don't have any skills yet. You've just removed you've removed their potential. And the last thing I'll say, I know you want to move on, but is that the minimum wage was never, from its inception, the minimum wage was not meant to sustain a household.
And I appreciate that point. And I'm going to say this. Again, if the minimum wage is $20 an hour, you're not going to maintain a household on $20 an hour. Not anywhere in the
No,
country.
no, I agree.
So my whole point, it has to be a phase-in approach where, like I said, back in 2016, it's $1 per year until it reaches a certain point. And if it takes 13 years from now to get it to $20 an hour, 13 years from now, what would that be? 2038? The minimum wage has got to be to $20 an hour in 2038, because the point of the minimum wage is not the person making the minimum wage feeding their household. It's all boats rise, which is a Republican saying, is that all boats rise. And they're like, what is it? Trickle down economics. And in theory, which I don't want to debate that tonight, but in theory, if we raise the minimum wage gradually, then that person making $25 an hour that is struggling, now they can go somewhere and make 30. Now they've just gotten themselves a $10,000 raise, and it helps them. But again, no, we cannot do it overnight, because it would you would lose all your high performers, because then it would turn into a bidding war, and you're a small business owner, a big company, but it can't remain $725. It just can't.
You know what's interesting? We can cut costs overnight. We can cut programs overnight. Things that hurt people, we can do that overnight. But things that help people, we gotta gradually give them that stuff. I think that's an interesting point.
Rob,
I don't disagree with you.
You're also a small business owner.
I don't disagree with you, but I'm just saying it's just quite interesting to me love my fellow brother that we can cut your shit off immediately. but giving you more, give you another slice of bread, we're gonna phase that in. But let me get back to the.
I would collapse the economy if we tripled the minimum wage.
I understand it. But I'm not. Again,
So
I'm being.
I know what you're saying,
right?
But
I also want to know is if the only reason that you can be in business or a business can be in business is by underpaying people, should they be in business?
I don't know any. I mean, I've been a small business owner my entire life. I've never met any of the people you are talking about.
What you mean?
I've never met anyone who can just pay somebody $5 an hour.
Travis,
If you want top talent, they're going to demand.
Time out. What
dollar amount.
company? What kind of company do you own?
Construction.
Nobody's paying construction workers $725.
No one.
Right.
No one.
Yeah, you're
But
way above that.
I owned yogurt shops,
Mhm.
and although we didn't pay,
And you would have paid your people $2 or $3 an hour.
no, I wouldn't.
Who would do? Who?
Somebody would.
Just
You wouldn't have
somebody.
any. If
It's
you
another
had,
one of those
so you wouldn't.
imaginary
You
people
wouldn't
out
give-
there that just.
But I didn't pay $20 an
I
hour.
can't
But
get
you
on
telling
board
me
with
that you would have paid more than the minimum.
We paid more than the minimum.
You paid
Absolutely.
more than the minimum wage,
Most
right?
likely that's going to happen.
We
Because
had
that's
to
attract a certain
talent.
because
Right.
McDonald's knew that
Was
they could pay
paying $10.
Right.
So if I
So
want to
you-
get
Right.
In order for you to get anybody to work the job at the minimum, you had to pay $10, right? Because that's what happened in that particular area.
But there were places in the plaza where we
You-
had one of the shops, the Pizza Hut.
There has been a
Paying
whole
$7.
entire labor movement to get the rights and benefits that we have today as workers. We have a whole history of literally saying when you ask the question of who's going to pay them that low, everybody in this industrialized nation did it until we got together and said,
We used to have
That is-
kids working factories
Right.
in this country.
so when you say who's going to do it, anybody who makes good business decisions would pay the least amount out that they could.
Because here's
I couldn't stand business that way.
But Travis,
I
You're not in a
couldn't-
business that'll
I-
do a lot.
Travis,
couldn't-
let me ask you a question. Do you hang out with other people that own construction companies? Do you hang out with other
I
people
would
that
say I
own?
hang out with them, but I have.
You're
I know
friendly
them.
with them.
Yeah.
We all are friendly with our same group of people. And you say, I don't know anybody like that. That's because you wouldn't hang out with somebody like that. You wouldn't befriend them. But there are people out there that are
Well,
going to
there's-
take advantage of the system.
Like we have a
There's
history of that said so.
there's two sides to that coin, because I don't know anybody that's out there trying to pay somebody, $5 or $10 an hour to work. But the other thing is, I guess this may be anecdotal because it's just me, but I have guys coming to me that I'll say this very quickly. Years ago, I could get a skilled laborer that had his own truck and his own set of tools for $200 a day. Okay. Right now, that average worker is getting $450 a day. Only he doesn't have a trailer anymore. He doesn't
You have
have
to supply the trailer.
what?
You have to.
I'm saying the quality.
The
The
quality.
quality of the worker has, but there are people out there paying it. So he'll
But
come to
they're
me.
not paying it unless they're profiting from it. They're only paying
Yeah,
that because they're
I'm sure
profiting.
they are.
I mean, you
I'm
can go
saying
to
the
any
la-
Home
I
Depot
believe the labor
in
market's
East Dallas.
much more fiercely competitive than you guys are giving it credit for. I'm saying that it's not a matter of can I get by with paying this guy, $10 than anybody else. Our problems that we're having is how much more can I afford to pay this guy? Because if I don't do it, somebody else will. If you can work
Well,
a paintbrush and a caulk gun, somebody in Dallas will give you $25 an hour today.
Yeah,
Well,
because they're making $100 an hour.
But
I don't care if they're making $1,000.
right.
But that's my whole point. Why should all of the gains of productivity
Because I
go to
put my blood, sweat, and tears, and I put the upfront.
Oh, well, they
money
put
and I
paint on the
built this
walls.
building.
They're doing this just as much sweat as you are.
But can we?
If you're going to tell me that this guy that's been here for a week has put as much blood, sweat, and tears as this company that I founded
For
25
that
years
span,
ago,
for that span. No. For a
I
week.
don't care.
I'm just talking about
I
this
don't
week.
care what we made this.
I'm
week.
only. Well, you have to. He wasn't here for the first 25 years.
If I pay him a
He was
fair
only here for the
market
week.
value, what should I give him? 50%?
No, I don't know what it is. I'm just saying. Why should all
you
the
should
gains
give
go
him what he
to-
agrees to do the job for.
What he
Right.
needs to do the job for? Yeah.
Right.
I agree.
So
We
what
all
does it
agree on
matter
that.
if he agrees to do it for $25 an hour? What does it matter if I make $10,000 an hour?
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
I don't care.
You just said, why shouldn't he have some of that benefit? If I make $1,000 an hour and I pay him 25,
But that guy, the person that who says that, if I'm John Doe union guy, right?
Mhm.
And your profits as a company went up 25%.
Mhm.
That didn't go just because of the decisions that were made in the CEO's office. That went up because we all put in some work to this.
and we all should get a piece of it.
Absolutely.
Okay, what if I go bankrupt and I get sued for $2 million? Should we all pitch in and pay for that lawsuit?
Oh, so well, let's figure out why you got sued for $2 million. Why were you in arrears by $2 million? Because you made the decisions that probably should have said you should have been out of business.
Well, we've got about 2 minutes left.
$2 million.
I tell you what, this has been a very spirited debate. So I'm going to ask a fun question. We're going to divert off the questions. So, Rob, what is something? What did you think about the Super Bowl yesterday?
I think the best man won. I think the best team won dramatically. I think KC had been skating by in a system that they just happened to have a superhero in Mahomes, and they shut that trash down. So
Favorite commercial yesterday?
Oh, I didn't pay much attention. I was waiting for the halftime show.
Did you enjoy the halftime show?
Absolutely enjoyed.
Where did it rank
In terms of
all times?
All time, probably top 5 for me.
Top 5. Travis, your favorite halftime show ever at Super Bowl?
My favorite halftime show ever?
Ever.
I don't have a favorite one ever, I guess, man. I don't know.
If I tell you my favorite, I'm going to be judged.
You will.
I know which one.
Listen,
I'm
you
sure.
will.
The Michael Jackson one. I mean,
Okay. Oh, that's
I thought
one
you
of my
were
top
gonna
5.
say Jackson. I thought you were gonna
One of my top
Janet
5.
Jackson's up there, but another one too, Prince. Purple Rain, it's raining. I mean,
Another one of my top
these were
5.
great.
I had Rihanna in there, Beyonce.
These were great.
I think they all do a pretty amazing job.
I don't know that I've ever seen a bad, or what I would consider a bad halftime show. They're all good. They're all good performances. I don't necessarily like all the art.
Right.
I'm an old man, and I don't recognize all the artists. But
You did some lyrics yesterday.
well,
What song were you singing yesterday?
we're not going into that. We have 1 minute left in the show. We have 1 minute left in the show. You don't need to know. Some things need to remain a mystery. Well, a quick note for the show. So we are going to take a break from the show, so we will not be airing on the studio. We have appreciated our 4 episodes. What a great, beautiful place here in downtown Mansfield. 063 Studios. If you're looking for a spot, this is your spot. They didn't pay me to say this. They're nice. The site is beautiful. The production quality is excellent. They can host a live audience. You should give them a shot. But we're gonna take a break on Mauck Talk. We agreed to do 4 episodes, see where we're at, and we're gonna kind of bring the show back at some point. But this has been great debate, and
It has been fun.
we all love each other at the end of the day. Got a little passionate tonight, but that's what politics. We did try to find some topics where we're different, and so we did differ tonight. So, but we appreciate all of you watching Mauck Talk. Tell your friends, and thank you so much. Have a good night, everyone, and we'll see you soon.
Take care.